In this video, we're going to walk through all the features within SaferMe so you can set up your account. The first thing we're going to do is add in any site or department managers who may need manager or admin access to the system, which means they'll see the dashboard that we're looking at here. You can also repeat this process to add in your general workforce, however, we're going to set up the forms, sites, risks, and everything they need to get started before we invite the rest of the workforce. To add in the first cohort of users, I'm going to click Add Users on the dashboard page or Members on the left menu and click Add Members. Enter in their email, first name and last name, and then we have 3 levels of access that we can provide them with. Members only have access to the mobile app. Admins and managers will have access to the dashboard that you see here. Once the worker has been invited, they'll receive an email invite to sign up to SaferMe. They'll show up as pending until they've accepted this invite. Once all the site managers or department managers are in the system, we can start creating the sites that they are associated with. To do this, I'm going to select Sites from the left menu and then choose Add Site. Here we can enter in the site name or the department name, a job number if required, and then we select the site manager from the drop-down. This is pulling from a list of users in the system and is why we need to invite the site managers or department managers before setting up the site. Enter in the site manager's details, noting that if you're using a public-facing QR code, contractors and visitors to site will be able to access this information. Here we've got the QR code, but you can download this by coming to the 3-dot menu and clicking Download. This will provide you with a QR code that contractors, visitors and workers can use to sign on to site. For app users, they can go to the Sites tab, find the site that they'd like to sign into and click Sign In. We can also do this through the web app. As I've just signed on to this site, we can see there is one person registered in the People on Site area. I can also add additional information to the site QR code, including free type text, location information like the nearest medical centre, and you can use the map screen on the right to either move the pin around to the correct location or search for the correct location. Lastly, you can add personnel details like the first aider on site. You'll be able to see who's currently on site by clicking Sites, and then in the People on Site column we'll see there's a count of 1. If I click on this, it'll bring up the names of those currently on site, including all of their details, when they signed in, if they're currently on site, and their overall time on site. This will also be available on the dashboard page, where an active site is a site with someone currently signed on, and an inactive site has no one currently signed on to site. Now let's look at how to add and customize forms. We're going to start on the Forms page. If you're signing up to a new account with SaferMe, you'll have 3 of our template forms to play around with. However, if you're the client of one of our health and safety partners, they will have already provided you with some forms to begin using and you can skip this step. If we'd like to build a form from scratch, we can come to Add Form, and here we can add the form name, categorize what kind of form it is, and add some instructional text if required. Before we dive into the form builder, I'm going to click the 3-dot menu at the top of this page. This will open the form settings. Here, we can change the colour of the pin if we'd like a pin to appear on the map. We can make this form anonymous, which means we won't be able to see who's reported it. This is most useful for feedback forms and safety observations. Checking the next box means that any email notification sent will come with a PDF copy of the report, but the 2 most important checkboxes here are Add all organisation members automatically, which means any new workers joining the organisation will have immediate access to make reports against this form, and Enable Site Reporting will present the workers with a drop-down showing all of the site names so that they can select the site they're on and associate the report with that site. After saving our changes, we're going to come to the Fields editor. We're going to edit these fields to make up our form. For this form template, I'm going to remove the short text box. The drop-down will be at the top of the form, and I'm going to click Edit to enter in what I'd like the worker to complete. We'll make this a vehicle registration drop-down, we'll make it required, and we'll use it as the report title, which is a filterable field that will allow admins to search for that particular vehicle registration. Ticking only visible to admins and assignees will hide this field from standard reporters so that only form admins, the site manager, and the current person assigned will be able to see this field. We'll cover how this works later in the video. I'm going to save my changes and then come to Options. This allows me to enter in the vehicle registrations that I'd like the worker to select from. In your forms, one of these drop-down options can be selected by default. In this case, I'm going to leave it as none selected, and we can click the plus button to add in more options, moving it to where we want it to be in the form by dragging it with the 6 blue dots. The trash icon will remove this option. We'll save our changes, and then I'm also going to move the fields around in the form by clicking these 6 blue dots and dragging it to where I'd like it to appear. For this checkbox, I can follow the same process, putting in a question, making it required, saving my changes, and then selecting Options to enter in the items I'd like the worker to check. Again, we can click the plus button to add new items or the trash icon to delete items. Click Add Field to select from a list of fields that we can add to the form. Let's look at an alternative way to set up this checklist. I'm going to click Add Field and then choose Radio button. Instead of presenting the items in a checklist, this allows us to ask one question at a time and then add in the options Yes, No. And you can repeat this process for every question you'd like the worker to answer. Under this question, I'm going to add in a bulleted list so that the worker can list out any items that might need repair. I'm going to move this to where I'd like it to be in the form, and now we're going to take a look at setting up a workflow that allows workers to select the status of the report or the vehicle. I'm going to click Add Field and then find Report State. We're going to enter in the name Vehicle Status and make this a required field. We're going to leave this at the bottom of the form, and note that this will present the workers with a drop-down that allows them to select the state or the status of the report. So to configure the settings in the drop-down, we're going to come to States. States control the workflow of the report and normally work top-down, so once a new report is submitted, it will come into the new report status. It can then be manually escalated through the workflow until it is closed out. You can click and drag a new status in from the left. It doesn't matter which one you choose, these are all configurable with the same settings, so you can adjust them to meet your needs. In this demonstration, I'm going to remove these 2 statuses, keep the first one, and change the language here to Stop, Further Action Required. If I want a pin to show up in the map screen of the mobile app to show where this vehicle check took place, I can set the pin to Normal. I can also control who's alerted when this is hit. I'm going to leave this at form admins only, but we can turn it to none or everyone in the organisation. I can then also set an auto transition, but we'll dive into this later in the video. And then this Restrict Who Can View Reports controls whether or not everyone in the organisation can see it, or just form admins, site managers and assignees. If unchecked, everyone with access to see this form can see reports. Restricting reports is on by default just in case you're creating an incident, near miss, or safety observation form template that you'd only like management to be able to see. The assignee is someone who will receive not only a notification to the report, but it will appear in their Tasks tab, and they will be the nominated person responsible for escalating it or closing it out. You can assign to a person's nominated supervisor, and we'll walk through how to set this up in another video. You can auto-assign it back to the creator. This is useful if you're creating a status to represent draft report. This means the worker can escalate the report once they're ready for it to be finalised. Or we can select a particular person within the organisation that all reports are going to be sent to. This might be your vehicle fleet manager. One status in every report must reflect that the report is resolved or closed out. I'm going to use the current resolved state, change the language to good to go, and this will reflect that there's no further action required on this report. At the bottom of this report, I can see that it's resolved and I can't uncheck this. Now that I've made those changes, I'm going to come to the Fields tab and ensure that before navigating away from this page, I'm going to click Publish in the top right corner. My changes will now be live within the app. Now let's take a look at another form template and the workflow behind that form. We're going to come to Forms, and here I'm going to choose Toolbox Talk. Again, clicking on fields will take us into the form builder where we can review the fields and the questions asked. I want to highlight some special fields inside this form. Under Hazards and Risks, there is a Hazards Identified field that cannot be removed. This field is connected to our risk register and will allow workers to select from a list of risks to embed into the form. I'm also going to add in a new field called Substances Register. This works very similarly. After creating our Substances Register, this will allow workers to select the substances used on site to embed inside the form. I'm going to move this under the Hazards and Risks area, and then I'm going to publish my changes. Let's take a look at the states area or the workflow of this report. Because we don't have the report state drop-down in this form, this is automatically going to come into the new Toolbox Talk state, which we can see is accessible to everyone and is alerting everyone in the organisation. It's also moving to the next state automatically after 14 hours, so no one has to manually escalate this. This means once the report has been created after 14 hours, it will move into this archived or resolved status. If you do weekly Toolbox Talks, you can change the auto transition timeframe to 7 days. Before moving on, let's take a look at one more form, the Accidents and Incidents form. Here we can find the makeup of the form, and this one has an investigation section that is restricted and only visible to admins, site managers, and the current assignee. We can see this because under each field, only visible to admins and assignees is checked. This means that mobile app users will not see these fields and it can be completed by the admins and site managers during follow-up. If we come to the states, we'll see that these are working top-down again, and when a new report is submitted, it will come into the new incident status, and it's currently restricted so only form admins, the site manager and assignees can see it. This is optional, but I'm going to automatically send these reports to the actions list of the setup team. I can then take a look at the investigation status, noting that this is also restricted, and then lastly, the resolved status, which we can see at the bottom is representing that the report has been closed. Once our forms are all set, we're ready to move on. Now let's take a look at how to create risks for our risk register inside SaferMe. If you're working with a health and safety consultant who partners with SaferMe, you may already have this built out and can skip this step. First, we're going to come to Risks, Hazards. If this is your first time using the risk register, before we get started, we'll have to configure the risk matrix. For each hazard, you'll need to select the likelihood and severity, and then the outcome will be automatically populated based on the scoring on this matrix. You can change the language here if and where required, and by playing with the numbers on the right, you'll affect the weighting of those scores. So if you work in a high-risk organisation, you may wish to change your scoring to reflect your risk matrix. The SaferMe risk matrix is a 5x5 matrix where if a worker were to select insignificant and very likely, it would come out to a score of 5 moderate. Once we've configured our risk matrix, we can begin to add our hazards. If at some point you'd like to change the risk matrix, you can come to Configuration or Risk Matrix in the left menu. This will take you back to the risk matrix page, and any changes you make will be applied to all risks. Let's select Add Hazard. This is going to take us to an area where we can enter in the hazard details, including the name, details of what can go wrong, the harm and impact, and set an initial risk rating. And this is where we get to select the likelihood and severity, which will populate the risk rating in accordance with our risk matrix. We can then add in all of the controls, and then select the likelihood and severity of the risk after controls have been added. We then have to choose a next review date, and admins will be able to see expired risks and manage these from the dashboard page. To edit or update a hazard, click on it, choose Edit Hazard, and make your required changes. At the bottom of this page, state why you made the changes. Click Edit Hazard, and the hazard will be updated. If we click on the hazard again, we'll see the changes we made reflected on the left. Back on the risks page, we can come to the download button to download a PDF copy of our risk register. Now let's follow a similar process to set up our substances register. On the substances page, we're going to select Add Substance. Move through this page filling out the details as required. You can also upload the SDS sheet from your computer. Entering the next review date will allow the workers to see whether or not the SDS sheet is still in date. In the next bulleted list, you can list out the specific storage and segregation requirements and the controls. After entering in all the required fields, click Submit. If you need to update this information, you can come to the three-dot menu and select Edit. In the form building portion of this video, we walked through two fields that allow workers to embed both risks and substances from these registers into their forms. We'll take a look at what that looks like for workers when completing the forms in a moment. Now that we've set up our site managers, their sites, our forms and workflows, our risk register and the hazardous substance register, we're ready to invite our broader workforce to the account. Repeat the add members process from the start of the video, making everyone a member or mobile app user. On the dashboard page, you can quickly see at a glance how many people are active or have completed the sign-up process and how many are still pending. Next, let's take a look at how to assign training records to these workers. We're going to click Configure, or go to the left menu and click Training. We can then establish our competency levels. These are the default options, but you can edit these if required. After saving our competency levels, it's time for us to add in the modules that our workers have completed. On the Training Modules page, let's click Add Module and add in the name of the training our workers have completed. We have to select a category. Certifications, qualifications, and licenses won't come up with a competency level for you to select from, but competencies and SOPs will. Let's make this a certification or qualification. You can add in a reminder so that 1 month out from the expiry date, all admins will be notified that this training is expiring. You can add in an additional reminder if arranging the training will take longer to complete. Let's add this module in and then come to Training, Records. Let's click Add Record. This is where we assign the module to one or many users. We first select the module, create an issue date, a review or expiry date, which will inform when that notification is received, and then under Completed By, we can click or search for workers who have completed this training. You can add multiple in this area. There's a space for additional information, and you can upload a PDF copy of the certificate if you have one. This will appear in the Records page. Let's take a look at how to add in a competency. First, we're going to come to Modules and then add a new module, and we're going to make this a manual handling SOP. After configuring our module, we're going to come to the Records page again and click Add Record. When we click the manual handling SOP, this will come with a competency level. If you're adding in multiple users to this training, it's worth doing it by their competency level. So for example, I would add all workers that are under level 4 to this module and then repeat this process for the other competency levels. We also have the ability to select a user who signed off on this training if required. Following the process we used previously, we're going to select the worker who we'd like to assign this training to and then create our record. Because this has expired, we'll see that reflected on this page. We'll have these filters here that show us what is coming up for expiry. You can also use any of these additional filters as well. When it's time for the worker to update their training, instead of creating a new record, we can click on the existing record, select Edit Record, and then make our desired changes. As with the risk register, we do have to state why we made these changes. A change history log will then appear on the left of the page. On the dashboard page, we'll see that the account has been configured. Admins and managers within the web app can come to the Configure button under Forms to select up to 3 forms that they'll be able to see at a glance all new and unresolved reports coming into the system. Choose the forms that are most specific to what you need to manage in the system, as this particular area is unique to your account. Let's now take a look at how to add and manage reports through the SaferMe web app. After clicking Add Report, we can search for our location or move the pin around on the map, confirm our location, and then select the form we'd like to complete. As we only currently have one site in the organisation, this is going to be pre-selected. As we're completing this form, this looks the same on the mobile app. I'm going to select the vehicle status, which is going to control whether or not this report notifies admins or whether or not it resolves. I'm going to put it in the Stop Further Action Required status, which will notify admins and the site manager of the site this report is associated with. Let's take a look at this process with another report. We're going to complete the toolbox talk. Fill in all the areas as prompted, and we'll see here that there is the ability to add hazards in from the risk register. We only have one hazard in the register at the moment, so let's embed this in the form. Selecting the down arrow will display all the risk information as it was entered in the hazard register. The risk scores and controls can be edited to suit the job at hand. This will not impact the master risk register, and these changes will only appear on this report. We can then follow the same process for the hazardous substance register by clicking Select, choosing the substances used on site, and then it will embed the information into the form. Clicking the down arrow will show this information and the SDS sheet. The specific storage requirements and additional information can be edited to the site at hand. After we've completed all the fields inside the form, we can click Submit. After submitting this form, it will come into the New Toolbox Talk status, and then after 7 days will automatically archive. Also in the header of the report, we can see what site it's associated with, the location, who made the report, and when it was submitted. In our final example, we're going to take a look at how to complete an accident or an incident form. If we have more than one site in the account, we can change this with the drop-down. We can then move through the report, filling out all the information as needed. At the bottom of the report, we'll find the investigation section. This is only accessible to the site manager, the admins, and the assignee. Mobile app users will not see these fields. We now have 3 reports in the system. Let's take a look at how to manage these. We can see how many reports are coming into the system on the dashboard page. New reports have not had any tasks assigned and have not been escalated in any way. Once a task has been assigned or it's been escalated, it will only appear in the Unresolved tab. We can also find a specific site's reports by coming to the Sites page, clicking on the site, and then we'll see all new and unresolved reports across all forms that have been associated with this site. If we are the assignee of the report or we've been assigned a task, we'll find this in the Actions page. You'll also find a list of all reports that you have access to see on the Reports table. Let's go back to our Actions tab and take a look at how to escalate or close out these reports. The first thing we're going to do is view the report. Review the details, and then if there is a follow-up action, you can assign this to someone or yourself in the Tasks tab. Click Create Task and enter in the information you'd like the person to complete. You can assign as many tasks as you like on the report. I'm going to make myself the assignee so we can see where this task appears. All those with access to see the report can view the tasks, but as it's assigned to me, I'll find it in my Actions tab. Here, I can either mark the task as complete, view the full task, or view the entire report. You'll also find a count of all unresolved tasks in the organisation, or those assigned to your account only, on the dashboard page. I'm going to go into my actions and mark this task as complete, where it will disappear. The task will now show as completed on the report. Even though I've completed the task, we can see that the report still appears in my Actions tab. This is because I haven't escalated it or removed myself as the assignee. To do that, I'm going to come to Manage, Edit State and Assignee, and change the status to Good to Go. We'll see that by default this removes me as the assignee. After saving my changes, I have the option to leave a comment on the report. Please note that comments can't be edited or deleted, and they do appear on the PDF download of a report. We can also see on the Tasks page that the task has been completed, and this shows when it was completed and who by. Back on the Actions tab, I have one more report still assigned to me. Here, I can review the report details. There is that admin investigation section which hasn't been completed. To complete this, as an admin, the assignee, or a site manager, I can come to the 3-dot menu, select Edit, and this will allow me to access the form so I can scroll down to the investigation section and add in my comments where required. If you don't have all the information you need to fill in the form right now, you can save your changes and come back to it later by repeating this process. After hitting save, my changes will be reflected on the report. In the Tasks tab, I can assign any corrective actions to myself or the reporter. In this scenario, the incident occurred a few days before the report was created, and in our toolbox talk, we've already done the manual handling training required as a corrective action. So in this case, I'm going to leave a comment, and then I'm going to edit the state and assignee to escalate it through the workflow. In this report, if there is still follow-up actions pending, I can pop it into investigation and keep it assigned to myself or the person responsible for that investigation. In this case, since we've done all corrective actions needed, I'm going to put it into the resolved state, where it will no longer be assigned to anyone. Back on the dashboard page, we'll see that there's one remaining unresolved toolbox talk. This report will automatically archive after 7 days, so we don't need to worry about this one too much. To find a particular report inside the system, we can come to the Filters button on the top right of the Reports page. Here you can search for a report title, select which site you want to generate the reports from, choose a created on time frame, choose a specific form, who it was reported by, or who it's currently assigned to. After applying my filters, the results will appear on the Reports page. I can then come to the Download button in the top right, which will allow me to download all results into a CSV or Excel file. I can then also click on the report, select the three-dot menu, and then manually export a PDF copy of just this singular report if I prefer. This is also the report that will come with the notification if that's enabled on the form settings. Back in the product, the last thing we're going to do is sign out of the site that we're currently signed onto. We can do this by coming to the Sites page, clicking on the site that we're currently signed into, and selecting Sign Out. We'll see the count of people signed in on site has changed, and if we come to Filters and remove the preference for those just showing currently on site, it'll come up with a record of anyone who has previously signed on to this site, including when they signed in, when they signed out, and their overall time spent at the site. These records can be downloaded to a CSV or Excel file as well. At the end of the day, when everyone has signed out of site, we'll see this reflected on the dashboard page, as there are no longer any active sites. If you have an active site and workers have forgotten to sign out at the end of the day, you can sign them out on their behalf by clicking on the active sites, choosing the count of people on site, selecting the checkbox next to the workers' names, and choosing Sign Out.